in the year Tafshin Memvav. That's exactly 40 years ago, on the 16th of Adar Sheni. So the Rebbe begins, Nitzoim Onu B'Yomim Shbein Purim LePesach. We find ourselves in the days between Purim and Pesach. Keloimar, this means to say, Tachas Rishumim Sheyimei HaPurim, Purim V'Shusham Purim. We are still under the influence and in more than just driving under the influence, but being under the influence of the days of Purim and Shusham Purim. Shahoy is the Ato that was just now. The Rebbe said the Sikha on the 16th, so it was Etzmal V'Shilshim. It was yesterday and the day before yesterday of the Sikha. Bad bevad im aschol sachon Chag Pesach. As you'll ask any woman, she'll tell you that we're already starting as soon as Purim is over with preparations for the Yom Tov of Pesach. So therefore, since we are under the impression of Purim, and we are already starting the Hachonas for Pesach, ubehesem lakach, corresponding to this, yesh lizboinen b'nekudam shutefes b'neim, we need to contemplate the common denominator between them. Inyan hageulah, it's the idea of redemption. Kol shoyn hagemara, like the language of the Gemara is, mismach geulah legeulah, we have to bring one redemption close to another redemption. Purim, we bring close to La Pesach. That's why when in a year when there's two others, we celebrate Purim in the second other, because we want Purim, which is a Geulah, to be close to Pesach, which is Geulah. Keloimar, what do we see from that expression in the Gemara? Sha'atoichen the Purim of Pesach hu Geulah. That the content of Purim Pesach is the idea of redemption. Ubeprotius Yoiser, more specifically, Beizefane Geulah. Two types of redemption. Aleph, Geulas Purim, the redemption of Purim. Geulah B'Shlei Musa, a complete redemption. I'm sorry, I skipped the lines. Geulas Purim is b'matzav shel golus, in the state of exile itself, where the Chazal say Akate Avdei Achashverosh Anan. The reason why we don't say Halal on Purim is because Purim was not a total Geulah, because even after Purim, we are still servants of Achashverosh. So therefore, there was not, that's one of the reasons why Halal was not established on the Yom Tov of Purim. Because Purim is Kloimer, this means to say, despite the fact that we find ourselves still in Golus, there's already a feeling of freedom, the Rebbe says. Despite Golus, we have a feeling of freedom. The Mekivin Shekshurim Makadosh Baruch Hu Mitzvah, since we're connected with Hashem through His Torah and His mitzvahs, Nishlelas Havshadas Lamatzav Eregesh Shel Abdus Tachas Shiltin Shemishum. It's negated any possibility to a state and a feeling of servitude under someone else's rulership. Lo Yichrab Lo Yishtachve. Like Mordechai did not kneel, did not bow down, Shekain Avodaihem, because they are my servants, the Jewish people. Veloy Avodim Lavodim, they are not servants to servants. In other words, we are not servants to the nations. And we know even more so, the Chazal say, Ve'eved Melech Melech, the servant of the king is like the king himself. He completely represents and is bottled to the king. Beis, Geulas Pesach, the redemption of Pesach is Geulah B'Shlei Musa, is a total redemption. Keloimar, Loirak Bitl Gzeirus, not just nullifying decrees. Shibud Va'avdus, meaning enslavement and servitude, Veregesh Shel Cheirus, and a feeling of freedom, which that's to be found even by the Geulah, the redemption of Purim. Ki'im, rather, Geulah Amitis V'Shleima, true and complete redemption. It comes out, should be Yomim Elu Ben Purim LePesach, and these days between Purim and Pesach, because we are right in between, we're right in that period between Purim and Pesach. Yesh Nam Beizefane Geulah. We possess both types of redemption. Geulah Hashayeches Bezman HaGolus, a redemption that's applicable in the time of Golus, Akati Avdei Achashverosh Anan, where we're still servants of Achashverosh. B'dugmas HaGeulah de Purim, similar to the Geulah of Purim. that then they will also remain servants of Achashverosh, we too can experience a redemption while still being in Geulah. V'hachonem, and also the preparation. Any preparation is similar to the matter to which one is preparing, Geulah hamitis v'ashlema, to the true and complete redemption. Shetia bedugmas hagol de Pesach, as we know that the true and complete redemption will be similar to the redemption of Pesach, like the pasuk says, like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. The Rebbe says, and in simple words, despite the fact that we're still in exile, we strengthen the feeling of freedom and redemption. Like every person sees about himself, even when he's in a certain state and situation. He has the capability to attain, through contemplation, to a feeling of a totally different state. He might be in a certain negative state, and his mind can transport him to a certain positive state. Not only that, this feeling permeates his entire being. For the moment, he forgets the state of the present. And eventually, it's not in a way of forgetting. He actually attains that level where he's completely in a totally new place, in a totally different situation. And along with that meditation, we prepare in an appropriate manner to the true and complete redemption. The appropriate preparation is bitla inin dechataenu, the nullifying of the idea of our sins, which is sibas hagolus, the cause of the exile. In other words, to prepare for Geulah means removing the things that brought about the golus, the sins. Va'adrab, just the opposite, not just removal of sins, but a safa belimud haTorah v'kiyum hamitzvahs, the increase in Torah study and fulfillment of mitzvahs. Through that we speed up the true and complete redemption. And now the Rebbe is going to point to one particular area where a person really needs to work on, especially to be able to bring the Geulah, and that's Avos Yisrael. Ois Beis, second paragraph. One of the matters that's connected with the state of exile is Hapiru de Bnei Yisrael, the separation amongst Yidden. Megillah, like the expression of the Megillah, Oidis Tarnasir Shal Haman, when speaking about Haman's complaint and claim, Mefuzar u'mefoyrad beina amim. They are scattered, but also they are separated. Scattered could refer to the physical locations, but mefoyrad is from the word Chas v'sholom, there is a separation amongst Yidden. The fact that the Jewish people are scattered physically amongst the nations is not by their fault. Because Hashem scattered them amongst the nations. Like in the language of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the leader of our generation, not from our own will did we go into exile. Our Father, our King, sent us into exile. But what was Haman's complaint? In other words, what's the negative forces trying to prosecute the Yidden? What's the complaint? The complaint is that the state of being scattered amongst the nations, it brought them also to a state of separation, a separation and division between one and another, until a lot of separation or division. Therefore, there is a need to nullify the state of separation and division. Even more so, shall Yisrael, to add an increase in the unity and oneness of the Yidden. Ubad Goshi Yeseda, and even more emphasis, when we find ourselves in days that are connected with redemption, like we said before. Hepech HaGolus, the opposite of exile. Asher Apiru du Echad Mitchunois, of one of the characteristics of exile is this division amongst Yidden, and we are in a state of Geulah gam b'matzav shel golus, when we are in a state of redemption, even when we are in exile, which is the Geulah of Purim, like we said before. The redemption of Purim is redemption despite being in exile. Bad bevad, hand in hand, Pesach, with the preparation for the true redemption, the complete redemption, which is symbolized by Pesach. How much more so is there a need when we're in this auspicious time of Geulah, that we have to do everything that counters Golus in the effect of Avos Yisrael. So he says, Nois Gimel, V'hinei bein ha'inyonim shebehem val yodem misbatim achdusim misbatas achdusim sheYisrael, amongst the things that through them is expressed the unity of Yidden, who is asfusam shel kama v'kama Yisrael Yisrael Yachdov. It's the gathering of many Jews together b'mokim echad, in one place, l'shem haTorah achas, and for one purpose. This is the Yechidus that the Rebbe was addressing to those that had gathered and come to spend time with the Rebbe for Purim. Like the Rebbe spoke in a previous occasion, on a previous Fabrengen on Purim that year, this Geulah Malasa Shoyesvadus, about the great quality and advantage of a Fabrengen, when Yidden get together. Kama v'kama Yisrael, when many different Jews, Balideus Shoinis v'Yisukim Shoinim, people of different opinions and different views and different occupations, from different locations, Misasvim Yachdav v'Mokem Echad, are gathered together in one place, L'Shem HaTorah Achas, and for one goal, Lishmoya Oisam Devarim, to listen to the same words. In other words, what the Rebbe is addressing all of them, or to experience together the same experience of being by the same Fabrengen, and similar to that. Well, the Dugma, an example of this unity, is what took place earlier, Purim, concerning the days of Purim. When all of us gathered together amongst Klal Yisrael, Lishmoyas Kriyas HaMegillah, to both hear the reading of the Megillah, so we're all listening to the same words, Lizboinen v'lichias mechadash, to contemplate and to relive anew, as Hamoroi Shaidoisam Mesuper Megillah, the events that about them is related in the Megillah. The Veloshna Megillah, like the expression of the Megillah is, Vayomim ha'elan iskarim v'naisim, these days are remembered and done. Meaning, though these events occurred many years ago, in the days of Mordechai Esther, the remembrance of the events, we are reliving this anew. Until the remembrance of these miracles that were in the days of Mordechai Esther, affects a sense and a feeling of joy in the present, in every time, meaning in any generation, and every year. We do this again and again, we experience it. And whatever our state is in, we are affected by the joy that happens from reading and recalling and re-experiencing the events that took place thousands of years ago. So therefore, the situation and the fact all are gathering together in one place, in one location, and in one emotional state, a state of joy, Kol hamis asfim lias metzias achas. This joins all those that are gathered to be one entity. Kahol Gadol, a great congregation, Ki'ish echad b'leiv echad, like one person with one heart. Now, even though this wasn't said around Parshas Vayakel that year, it was later in the reading of Torah, but this has a lot to do with, the Rebbe always speaks about Vayakel. Parshas Vayakel is about the idea that all the Yidden were gathered together, and the Rebbe connects it also with Pikudei. Pikudei means each one is numbered and counted. Over there it's talking about the numbers of the items that were used to make the Mishkan, but still, Vayakel Pikudei is the idea that we take the individuals and everyone as an individual. That's the inner meaning of Pikudei, and we gather them together and we make unity from that. Daled, second paragraph on the page. Inyan, now the above mentioned thing had Goshas Achdusam Shal Yisrael. Ideis Asvus Kam Vakam Yisrael Yachtav, the emphasis of the unity of Yidden through the gathering of many Jews together. Mahave Gam Tam Vesibel Leminig Lis Asif Pam Nesefes Lefnei Sha'imdim Lepared Ish Mereu. This also is another reason to the custom to gather another time together before we're about to separate, to say goodbye one from another. In other words, again, like I said, this is a Yechidus for the guests that came to visit the Rebbe for Purim. So this was like the Rebbe saying goodbye to them before each one was going to go travel home. When all are gathered together for a certain amount of time. For the purpose of a Fabrengen, etc. Afterwards we have to travel, and every person needs to return to their place. For whatever reason they need to return. They need to go somewhere because that's where they make a living. Or Afatzayadus, they're shluchim, they have to go somewhere to spread Yiddishkeit, or they're a Rav, or they're a Rosh Yeshiva, whatever. Etc. So even if they must leave, there's a need to emphasize that this trip that all these people are taking, each one to return to their home, is only a physical separation, and it's only an external separation. But spiritually and internally, mitzad neshama, from the neshama's perspective, the truth of the matter is, the unity continues and goes on just like when they were all here together. The unity continues even when they go to their own towns and homes and countries, etc. The Yisedem is that the Rebbe says even more so. The very fact that physically they are located distant from one another. This awakens a feeling of yearning. They missed the time when they were all together, even externally. And therefore, this yearning for that time, this feeling strengthens the idea of unity. All of them become joined. Men, women, and children. Kol Gadol, a great congregation. Through that very feeling that they yearn for each other. As a result of this, as an outcome, a consequence of this, even when they find themselves in a state of being scattered amongst the nations, every person in their own location, or even when they're in the same location, I will be sukim shoinim, they're involved in different occupations, every person in their private matters, every person under his vine, every person under his fig tree. Nitzav Chai Zikaron Achdus. The memory of their unity that you have stands alive in front of them. Zikaron Ha'uvda Sheyeshnoi Amecha. The remembrance of the fact that even Haman said there is a nation that is one, meaning a united nation. Goyechad, one people. Aidei Sachdusoi. How are you united? Through being joined in Hashem Echad, with the one God, with Torah Achas, and the one Torah. So these are what affects the unity amongst the Yidden, even when physically they may be scattered. This remembrance comes out in action. As we said, through remembering, it is done. It actually affects the world of action in one's day-to-day life. Hein be'etzem ha'uvda, both in the very fact shekulam chadurim ba'oisei rayon, all are permeated by the same idea. Shekol echad me'maskos hayoim ba'miras moida anil farnechem al chai v'kaim shechzarta b'nishmasi. Every Jew begins the day with reciting moidani umesayim es hayoim ba'miras biyot chav kedruchi, and concludes the day by saying, in your hands I will give over my spirit. This means also at the conclusion of the day, Lifnei Hashena, before sleeping, one becomes joined with Hashem. Through accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. How does one accept the yoke of the kingdom of heaven? By saying Krishma, by saying Shema Yisrael, they are accepting Hashem as their king. The saying Shema Yisrael and the Biyot Chav Kidruchi the night before is the appropriate and the best type of preparation to opening of a new day. In such a way that every day we're considered like a new creation. With renewed powers and energy, to fulfill the mission of Hashem in spreading Yiddishkeit, Toiv, Kedusha, goodness and holiness, b'chol makom sheyadim agas, wherever a person could reach. V'hein b'negel inyan ha'achdus. So not only do they share the common thing, not only do they share this common denominator of what they do in the morning and at night, but they also share the common denominator in their unity. Then if there's someone that needs some type of assistance, whether materially or spiritually, we assist them and we help them with in anything possible with a smiling countenance. And this way of acting is going to add even more so on the brachas of Hashem and anything that's necessary. That one should be able to be occupied in all the above mentioned matters out of health and joy, comfortable living, and true nachas from children and grandchildren, and also having nachas from oneself. Including to prepare out of joy and happiness for a kosher and joyous Pesach ad Geulah mitzvah shlema until a true and complete redemption. Mitzrayim, like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders.